Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. This video is all about horrors, my favourite horrors I read during 2024. In this video, I won't give ratings, it's just a list of horror stories I enjoyed. The stories I enjoyed the most for the year. Let's start now. The first is Season of the Witch, written by Rees Brennan. I really enjoyed this. It's based on the TV show, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's a prequel to that TV show. And this book is very paranormal in nature. There are a few dark things going on as well. It is YA horror, but for a YA book, it's written very well. I enjoyed the paranormal aspects, but I also enjoyed the characters, primarily Sabrina's character. And I enjoyed getting into her mind, the way she's thinking about what happens when she turns 16 and has that choice to make. Will she go to the Academy of the Dark Arts or won't she? And big things hang on her choosing yes or no. She's half witch, half mortal, of course, and because of that, she lives in the mortal realm until she makes this choice of whether to go to the academy or not. But she has mortal friends, she has a mortal life, she has a boyfriend, a lot going on. So I get her viewpoint as a teenager about that. And it feels very real. It feels like it's a real teenager's point of view in the book. There are dark things going on in this story as well to make it a paranormal horror. It's not all lightness. It's not all about Sabrina making this choice. There are dark things going on. And those dark things are quite twisted in some ways. They're impactful in the story. And it makes this a YA horror. So for me, it's well written. It matches the characters from the TV show, which is great, because not all books based on TV shows or movies or certain universes match who the characters are in other mediums. So I enjoyed the characters in this story. I enjoyed the paranormal aspects. And I think this is a great read. The Gathering, written by CJ Tudor. So it's a vampire cold case mystery and modern day mystery. I enjoyed this so much. A great setting, a small town in Alaska that's sometimes cut off by weather conditions. We have a vampire enclave not far out of the town, and we find out in the world building that vampires have been known to be in existence for decades, even centuries, and have been pushed out further and further into these enclaves. And the vampires don't want that. The vampires want more of a life. And we get that undercurrent in this book as well. A lot of undercurrents going on in this book about the way the world's built, about society's views on vampires or even on each other. And also in this book, what I like is a protagonist. A protagonist comes across as an everyday average person. She's not super strong. She's not, a supermodel. She's not, super anything. She's an average person, but a good investigator, a good thorough investigator who makes clever and carefully considered choices. And she has a lot of pressure because in this world, the people in this town, they want to be able to cull the vampires. So one thing that could come about in this investigation is one choice, one decision, is that the authorities allow people to go and cull vampires at whim in this enclave. That's one possible consequence of this vampire crime. There are horror elements, of course, in this book that are quite gory sometimes, quite gruesome. So it does make it a true vampire horror. And I think it could be a risk to write vampire horror now because even though I like vampire stories still, I get the impression that not all readers still enjoy vampire stories. I think many readers think vampire stories are in the past and horror should be something else now. I don't know if vampires are still on trend or not, but for me, I enjoy them. I still enjoy vampire stories. That Night in the Library, written by Jurczyk. I enjoy this book. I enjoy the setup very much. So it starts off with 7 characters, and we get to know them very deeply. And I like the way that's set out because when things shift, when it becomes more urgent and fast-paced, you don't want to be bogged down into learning about characters. We know about them all already. So the setup is these 7 characters are all students at this library. Well, all are except for one, I think. One's like a ring-in for this thing they're doing. And what they're doing is they're meeting in a basement at night. They're going to perform a ritual. They want to expel, they want to get rid of all their fear. What ends up happening is they're locked in the basement. This automatic locks trigger and they're locked there. The lights go out, somebody screams, and then it's mayhem. And it's mayhem for much of the story. Not mayhem in a bad way. I'm not saying it's a mess. I'm not saying it's a badly written story. But the mayhem is so tense, so atmospheric. There's things going on in this story. You don't know who to trust. It's one of those books where every character could be a killer. Every character could be lying. You don't know who to trust. And I read this just wondering who's telling the truth and not, who the killer is. And the way it progresses so quickly, the things happening so quickly, it's almost like you can't catch your breath when you read this. So for atmospheric horror, I think this is very well done. I think it feels very modern in the way it's written. And I think this would make a great movie, actually. I think with the characters, with the situations, and that setting, that atmosphere, I think this would make a great movie. The Drowning House, written by Cherie Priest. Now, this book to me feels very much like 80s horror. It's more about atmosphere and characters than about gore and blood and all that sort of thing. And I enjoy that in this story. There are two things that drag you into this story. One character, Simon, who's usually dependable, he goes missing suddenly. What happened to him? Two other characters who have known Simon since childhood are trying to find out. And then there's a house, a mysterious house that washes ashore suddenly. Why did it appear suddenly at around the same time that Simon vanished? So two mysteries there. And these two characters who knew Simon are also trying to solve the mystery about this house. It's very atmospheric. The setting, I think, is so well done. A great choice in setting, I think. And the characters, I think, are written so well. We get past, present split chapters. The past is really good because in the past, we get to understand all the characters, even Simon, who went missing. But in the present, we get to feel the characters' confusion, their fear. We get to feel all their questions. And I like the way that's written. I like the way this author's able to express that in this story so clearly and so powerfully. It makes the atmosphere build up, all the tension and suspense build up. It makes this a real atmospheric horror, and there are true horror elements going on in this book. It's not all about atmosphere and characters. It's horror elements going on in the story as well. So for me, this was written very well. It dragged me into the story. It hooked me into the story very early on, and I enjoyed the entire read. Salem's Lot, written by Stephen King. So a vampire horror, but for me, it's more a light horror. It's not a deep and dark horror. And I don't even think when it was published, it would have been in deep and dark horror. This is also all about small town America. So I have a lot of elements going on, a lot of discussion about what King thinks about small town America at the time this is written. We have discussions about the start of satanic panic in this story. We have, people shaking off superstition and embracing modernity. And because of that, so many people in this town ignore all the changes happening in this book. We also have younger generations challenging their adults, older generations, about things about the status quo. That's going on with certain characters in this book, and I think it's done very well. And I think most of the book is about that. And while that's all occurring in this story, we have this recurring motif of this large house, this mansion on the hill overlooking the town. And it's from that motif in this book we get this atmosphere, this feeling of dread. And that's through characters who view the house from the small town. Because if you're in this small town anywhere, apparently, you can see this large house on the hill. So it's from that we get this horror sense, this atmosphere in the story. So in my view, most of the story is about atmosphere and characters, not about deep and dark horror. So I like that in the book though. I like that exploration of small town America. I like the character-driven things going on in the book. I like the atmosphere that's building up because the atmosphere builds up and doesn't decrease in the story because characters, even though they're not looking at the house sometimes, they're thinking about it. They're thinking about changes they see in the town. Some characters anyway, not all. So I like the way that's done. And I like the unlikely band of heroes combating this great evil in the story. I think many horror books are like that. We have unlikely heroes who join forces and have no other reason than they're there. They're there and situations force them together. Then they combat a true evil, a big evil. It's like ordinary people combating something huge, a huge monster. And you get that impression in this story as well. So that evil and good battle going on, that's what makes this, I think, more impactful as well, especially towards the end of the story. It is one of King's better books in my view. It is written well. I think it's written well because it's at a time where King was just getting bigger. And at that time, he probably had editors and publishers taking more focus on his work, giving it more polish. So I think in his later works, especially in the last few years, some of his works don't seem that polished. So in my view, this is better written than many modern books King's produced. And I think this shows that sometimes authors get too big for editors and publishers to take too much focus, too much attention in what they're doing. Property of a Lady, written by Sarah Rayne. This is a classic haunted house story. It's very atmospheric. And it relies on things like, shadows and things seen from the corner of eye, noises, all that sort of thing, character perceptions to build atmosphere. And it's done very well. There are two protagonists in this story. They're very unlikely friends, but they're drawn together by chance. And I like the way that happens. I like the focus on both characters. I like how they perceive this house, both of them. And I like how the house just ekes out this feeling of atmosphere and dread. It's very subtle in some ways, and that subtlety drags you into it, because it's not in your face. It's not shock horror. It's like suggestive in some ways. It's like saying, could this be something or couldn't it be? And you're trying to look closer, like lean closer to a picture, if you will, to try to work something out, some detail. That's what I like. And it kind of drags you in because of it. The one flaw in this book is that there's a bit of coincidence about how clues are found. They're found from diaries and things like that, like hidden diaries, but they're always found at the right moment. It happens, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times in this book. So the only flaw in this story is that it adds a level of kind of not being too realistic in the story, and it drags you out of some of that atmosphere because of it, a little bit. It doesn't stop this from being a very atmospheric book, because it is. But I just wish that those clues and things weren't found so easily all the time and at the right moment. Confessions of the Dead, written by James Patterson and J.D. Barker. So this is true small town horror. And it's a horror that has a big jolt in it. It's like a shock horror in that way, but it's not about shock horror giving you gore and blood at that stage. It's more about a situation and event. So in this book, we have this small town, and nothing happens in this small town. No big crimes at all. Then suddenly a strange girl appears. Then after that, things turn into mayhem. And that's the big jolt in this book. This sudden shift from just pleasantness in this small town to mayhem, to events going on that don't happen in this town until now. We have characters who think different things about the events. We have some characters trying to take advantage. We have some characters who are fearful, trying to get out of the town. But it's all about what's coming from that moment. That moment is a huge catalyst in this town, and it drives all the horror feeling in the story. I really like the way that's done. This reminds me a lot of Dean Koontz, of John Saul. It reminds me of them more than Stephen King, because Dean Koontz is good at writing cross-genre fiction. And this book is also cross-genre. It's horror, it's thriller, it's mystery, it's action. And Dean Koontz is good at that. And John Saul was very good at writing atmospheric horror, based on character and atmosphere, not so much based on gore and blood. And there are moments in this book that are based around characters and atmosphere. Not all of it. There is no shock about certain events that are more gruesome and bloody in this story, but there is atmosphere and great characters in this story as well. So for me, it's an interesting book, a great read, a great horror, and I love that jolt, that sudden jolt between pleasantness and then mayhem. That was so well done. The Shining, written by Stephen King. I enjoyed this, but the pacing is off sometimes in this book, especially at the start. You could reduce the start of the story when we first meet the characters. You could reduce that to 10 pages and still give us enough about the characters, about who they are. We didn't need, in the book I read, it was like 70 or 80 pages at the start of the story before they set foot in the hotel. Once they're there though in the hotel, I think it's great. We have a great atmosphere. It's a haunted house story in an atmosphere. And also, it's a great family drama story as well, as the characters start to clash in that isolation. And I like isolated settings in stories. This is very isolated, like a hotel in the middle of nowhere. It's a blizzard, they're snowed in, they can't get out, and they're stuck there, the three of them together all that time. So I enjoy that that isolation in the setting and also in the hotel itself, because they're together, they're a family in the story, but they feel isolated from each other at many moments in this book. So I think there's isolation outside and inside in this story that I think is quite interesting. What I think is a good choice in this book is using Jack to drive a lot of the horror in the story. And to have that human character driving the horror, not the hotel itself, but a human character driving it, causing those horror moments, causing the destruction, that was interesting and a great choice. Not a great choice though was Danny. So Danny acts like he's 15 in this story, not 5. Acts way above his years, and that just ripped away any realism in that character. And I needed that, because a lot of focus is on him, of course, in this book. So I need that character to feel real. It just shows sometimes King is way off in characterization, even though the other characters, Jack and his wife, are great characters in this story. Their son, Danny, not so great. The Hiding Place by CJ Tudor, so part horror, part mystery, part noir. I enjoyed this. It has a small village setting, so I love small village or small town settings in books. It has a great horror feel to it as well. What I like about the horror in this book is it's about the unknown. We don't learn everything about the horror. We know little things, small things, not the full picture. So those question marks, the unknown, that drag me into this book. I was wondering, what is this all about? What's going to happen next? What do we learn next? And the not knowing those questions at the end about what's causing the horror, what's causing things going on in this book, that was interesting, I think. So basically in this book, we have our protagonist Joe, and he receives a mysterious message telling him that it's happening again in the town he grew up. The same thing that happened to his sister, happening again after many years. So he sets off to the town, lies about certain things to get there, and then he's immersed in this small town setting, and we are as well because we follow him. And I like the way his character behaves in the town because it's engaging. Sometimes it's too extreme, but it is engaging. I'm not saying I agree with all the things he does in the book, but he is engaging because sometimes I think he's on the edge. And being on the edge drives more atmosphere in the story as well. So we get atmosphere from the horror elements, atmosphere from Joe, but also from other characters in this town, because we know there are other characters in the town that Joe knew from his teenage and child years, and they don't like him at all. There are certain people who want him gone. There are other elements at play in this story as well I won't go into in this video, but this is very atmospheric, very chilling, a great horror, and one of those great horrors where we have many questions. One of those horrors where you don't get all the answers. Even when you complete this book, you won't have all the answers. You're still wondering about certain things. So I like when it happens, but I think when it happens, those visuals are quite strong because those visuals make you imagine certain things as well yourself. So interesting book, interesting the way it's written, where we have many elements playing about in this horror type story. I enjoyed it a lot. The Holy Terrors, written by Simon R. Green. So it's book 1 in the Holy Terrors series, and there is a second book coming out in 2025. Anyway, this book is quite interesting. It is a horror, a paranormal type horror, and in this book we follow a cast of characters. Some are like B-grade or D-grade celebrities and are invited on this ghost hunting show at a challenge to stay at a haunted location overnight. I think maybe even for 24 hours. But other characters in this book are the producer and kind of main director or something of this TV series. But what makes this book really interesting is with the horror things going on. We don't know if they're real in the story or if they're fake. Because we learn from the producer and things, the crew and everything on this TV show, is that they put things in this TV show that are fake, that are set up to make it more gripping and chilling on the screen. But when things start happening in this location they're in, nobody tells us whether they're real or not. That's part of the fun, and it makes it more chilling because we don't know if we can trust all the characters in this story, all the reactions going on. I quite liked this whole book, the way it plays out. I wasn't sure about it at the start because I thought, well, I'm there for a horror and it was advertised as a horror book. I wondered, was it going to be a horror book when I first met the characters and when I first understood the full situation? But it turns out it is quite atmospheric, it is very dark, it is quite chilling, it is fast-paced, And the ride, I think, fits all those things about that type of horror. And I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the not knowing, the trying to guess whether things are real or not. I really enjoyed our two kind of main characters who come out from the story, because I get the impression there's things going on between those characters as well, different undercurrents. So overall, it's engaging, entertaining. It is a true horror. It's quite a quick read, not a very long book, so it's a very quick read if you want to read it. But I think of this as like one of those modern horrors, one of those modern type horrors that are there for chills and thrills, but also to give you entertainment and adventure through the whole story. So there you have my favourite horrors from 2024. Have you read any of these books? What were your thoughts? Do you want to read any you have not read? What were your favourite horror reads for the year? Let me know. On my channel I review many horrors. If you enjoy horror, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link on the video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.